And it's a good opportunity to remind everyone that all of our webinars and everything are always made available on our YouTube channel, usually the same day. We'll also make sure to send a follow-up email that has a link, and you'll be able to find the video on the same page that you registered as well. So if there's anybody who wasn't able to attend with your organization that you want to see this video, you'll be able to share that with them afterwards. We'll give it just a couple of minutes to allow people to trickle in before we get started here. If you can hear me, I would love to start everything off by having everyone share their name. Well, you don't have to share your name. I always say that. But if you could share where you're joining us from, any organization you're affiliated with, um, in the chat so we can know where everyone's coming from today. So again, I feel like I said that really poorly, but if you could just share any organization that you're affiliated with and what city and state you're joining us from today in the chat, that would be lovely. Right. Good morning, Texas, Connecticut, and Arkansas. Hello, everyone. Lots of Texas this morning. Seeing a lot of our NRPM friends joining us this morning also. Welcome, everyone. All right, we still have a few people trickling in, so I'll give it just a few more seconds and we'll get started. All right, all right. Why don't we go ahead and get started? So welcome, everyone. My name is Christopher. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications with the National Runaway Safeline. I also produce our podcast, Let's Talk. And I am so excited to be here with you all today to talk a little bit about our Let's Talk Runaway Prevention curriculum, which has had lots and lots of updates over the past couple of years. I am joined and led today by our Chief Program Officer, Sam Gillis. Sam, do you want to do a quick introduction?
Sure. Thanks, Christopher. Hi, everyone. My name's Sam. I use she, her pronouns, and I oversee programs at NRS. Super excited to be with you all here today, share some of the new stuff that we have going on with Let's Talk, and then hear from you all.
Absolutely. Why don't we go ahead and go to our first slide here? So as we get started today, of course, we love to do a poll here at the National Runaway Safeline. We want to really gauge where everyone is so that we have a better idea of how we'll flow through the presentation today. So we're going to have just a few poll questions to begin with here. Oh, it's not letting me. Sam, can you see if you can launch the polls? It's like telling me that I can't.
That work for us? There we go. So have you heard of the Let's Talk Runaway Prevention curriculum?
Simple yes or no question. We just want to know who actually has heard of the curriculum, period.
About 50-50 right now.
Yeah, it's okay. Don't be embarrassed if you've never heard about it. That's why you're here today. You're going to learn some things.
Okay, we're slowing down, so I'm going to end this one. Yep. Split about down the middle. Okay, that's super helpful for us.
Love that. That number gets higher and higher every time we do this presentation. So I really appreciate everyone who shared that they haven't heard of it yet. Next time you join us, you'll vote differently, which will be great.
Let's do the second one here. Do you currently use the Let's Talk Runaway Prevention curriculum in your program? So I guess that would obviously only apply to the folks that have heard about it.
Mhm.
Let me launch this poll here. Okay, a couple folks do. Okay, we've got about 60% no, 17 yes, and a couple unsures. Okay, that's also super helpful for us as we contextualize this and know what points to lean into further as we go through the curriculum or through the presentation today. And I believe we've got one more for you.
Yes.
Do you currently use another prevention curriculum in your program currently? Let me launch that.
Also, if you do use another curriculum in your program and you don't mind sharing the name of that curriculum with us, would you mind dropping that in the chat for us, please? We're just curious. We're not going to steal it, we promise.
Okay. Looks like we've got about a quarter of folks saying yes and a little over 75% saying no. Okay, and then as Christopher mentioned, if you can share or would like to share the name of that curriculum with us in the chat, we would be oh so appreciative so we can keep learning as well. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing and pass it back over to Christopher here.
Thank you for doing that, Sam.
Yeah.
All right, so as we get started here, I am just going to take a quick moment to introduce everyone to the National Runaway Safeline, or NRS. So the National Runaway Safeline, our whole thing is ensuring that youth who have run away or are experiencing homelessness or facing any type of crisis are safe and off the streets. We deal mostly in providing resources, educational tools, and training opportunities. Yeah, don't forget to hit us up for your training opportunities. We love to talk about prevention and early intervention for young people ages 10 to 24 and their families. No matter what age you are, if you reach out to us at the National Runaway Safeline, we will find a way to help you the best that we can. We also operate the federally designated national communication system, which you may all know as 1-800-RUNAWAY and 1-800-RUNAWAY.org, which is where you can contact us through our hotline, through chat services, text services, and things like that, which I'll talk about in a moment. We have a National Youth Advisory Board of paid young people with lived experience. They really help to guide our programs. They really go above and beyond. They do everything from supporting us on our social media to helping us with some fundraising events. And again, they're all paid for their time and expertise because it really has helped us elevate who we are as an organization and how we present ourselves. And just to give you a little bit of context, we make about 125,000 connections every year through our hotline, online, and offline resources. And I think that number is even bigger if you take into consideration the number of people who are reaching out to us because they learned about us on social media, or the people who find out about us on social media and don't necessarily reach out to us. We make lots and lots of connections every year. Next slide, please. So about some of the services that we offer, like I mentioned earlier, through 1-800-RUNAWAY.org and 1-800-RUNAWAY, our hotline number, you can contact our crisis services team 24 hours a day, 365. They will do hotline calls, live texting. We have a live chat function. You can also email us if that's more convenient and you don't need a more immediate answer. And we also have a really awesome online forum. It's basically an archive of literally thousands and thousands of really important, sometimes personal questions, it can be a great starting point for someone who may be experiencing some type of crisis or trauma, but may not necessarily be ready to talk about it. We love recommending the forum because it's a great place to learn without having to open up necessarily. And a lot of times people reach out to us saying like, oh, I read this on the forum and I just wanted to like talk to somebody about it. All of our crisis services team are all trauma informed. So if you ever refer someone to the National Runaway Safeline, you can feel rest assured that we're going to make sure to talk to them in a way that does not traumatize them. We want to make sure that we earn their trust and like listen to what they have to say, but we are trauma informed. So we are making sure that we're not re-traumatizing them or asking them to recount things that may be traumatizing. We offer information and referral services. So if a young person reaches out to us, we will, if they need to, refer them to different organizations, programs, and services in their local community. We have a really incredible database that has over 6,500 organizations that we partner with across the country to help with tons and tons of things, which I believe are actually on the next slide. And I'll talk about those a little bit. But we also do things like messaging services, conference call, and our trademark program, which is Home Free in partnership with Greyhound, is a family reunification and transportation program. So through our Home Free program, a young person that is needs to return home or needs to get to a safe alternative living arrangement is able to do so with a free bus ticket. To access the Home Free program, you do have to call our hotline 1-800-RUNAWAY, but we do welcome people to reach out to us through chat or email or any other form of contact to ask questions about the Home Free program if they need to, and that's more comfortable. Next slide, please. So some of the resources and referrals, like I mentioned, we have this huge, incredible database of over 6,500 agencies and services across the country that include everything you can imagine, from basic centers and shelters to medical assistance, food pantries, child protective services. I think a huge one that we would love to see more people taking advantage of are the McKinney-Vento liaisons. We can also refer to other crisis hotlines. We recognize that we definitely have an area that we specialize in, and there are some people who may be experts in other areas, and we are not afraid to share the space with them to make sure that we're offering the best help for that anybody reaching out to us as possible. Next slide, please. And then we also offer lovely free prevention and educational resources. That includes national data, so data about all of the people that are reaching out to us in the various methods that they can. We can offer that data at the national level, like I mentioned, or we can even break that down to a state level. We often have organizations that reach out to us that need it for like a specific zip code. We found that lots of people find this data really helpful in the grant writing process. We offer free educational and outreach materials, which takes the forms of like flyers, pull tab flyers, the type of things that you want to take out into your community and share at like coffee shops or share with schools to make sure that young people just know who the organization is and can reach out if they need help. We offer really cool, discreet palm cards, which are really popular. It's something that you can very discreetly hand to someone that has our information on it and contact information. And then we also offer a few different educational resources, one of which we'll be talking about today, which is our Let's Talk Runaway Prevention curriculum. We also have our Let's Talk podcast, where we talk directly to organizations just like yours or young people with lived experience about what they've gone through, what has worked, what hasn't worked, and the things that they're looking forward to in the future. We have a blog on our website, 1-800-runaway.org/blog or nationalrunawaysafeline.org/blog. It'll take you to the same blog where we talk about different topics, whether it's about supporting a young person who identifies as LGBTQIA2S+, or what it means to be someone's chosen family if they have left home. And then one of the big ones, like I mentioned before, that I did notice that we have quite a few National Runaway Prevention Month partners with us here today. Every year, the National Runaway Safeline leads the National Runaway Prevention Month campaign with the support, of course, of hundreds of organizations across the country who sign up as National Runaway Prevention Month partners. This basically is a month-long campaign where we provide different graphics and data and resources for people to share just to spread awareness about runaway prevention as a whole. And if you don't already know, National Runaway Prevention Month will be taking a new name more than likely this year. So I'm excited to see how all of that shakes out, to see what we'll be calling it and how we'll be moving forward with National Runaway Prevention Month. So stay tuned for that. If you haven't already signed up for a partner and you want to like know what's going on with National Runaway Prevention Month, you can always go to 1-800-runaway.org/NRPM to go ahead and sign up as a partner to make sure you get updated on that whenever it happens. Now, let's talk about the importance of prevention. If you notice, I feel like as a community, the runaway and homeless youth community has kind of moved away from the word awareness and is focusing more on prevention efforts. The reason is because nearly 4.2 million young people ages 13 to 25 will experience homelessness in the US every single year. Any youth that's experiencing homelessness or housing instability may find challenges finding consistent and healthy meals. We all know how important that is, how much it can change your day if you're not able to like eat or find a meal that's satisfying or nutritious enough. Struggling to find like support for their physical and mental health. We all know that mental health continues to be a rising concern for all young people who are reaching out to organizations who support them. They may face violent situations, and another big one is they may be unable to attend or graduate from school, which we of course do not want. So these negative outcomes associated with homelessness include like abuse, mental health challenges, drug and alcohol abuse, and unfortunately sometimes premature death. A big point for us and why prevention is so important is because um, we have people basically when they reach out to a National Runaway Safeline can voluntarily offer data about either the young person that they're reaching out to us or if it is the young person about themselves. And we found that in our most recent year, about 36% of the young people that were the subject of a call were still at home at the time of the crisis, which is a really big deal because that means that 36% of people we can intervene before they leave home to help them make better, more informed decisions, make sure that they are going to stay safe, make sure that they are able to have access to things that will keep them safe if they do decide to leave home. Or of course, if we can like help them take advantage of a program like Home Free, we have a much better opportunity to help them stay safe if we can reach them before they actually leave home. So that's why we focus mostly on the prevention side of things as opposed to just like trying to bring awareness to things. We want to make sure that once again that we're helping young people before they find themselves in a dangerous or traumatic situation. Um, this is the slide is showing you like again what people are sharing is the status of the youth at the time that they reach out to National Runaway Safeline. So 40% of the people are calling about a youth that is currently in crisis. About 26% of those young people are contemplating running away. 16% have already run away, with 13% identifying as already homeless. About 3% have been asked to leave. That data stat used to say kicked out, but we say asked to leave. And about less than 1% is suspected missing. So this is all our most recent data from 2023. We're currently working our way through this data, and I believe over the next couple of months, you'll start seeing the national snapshot of data as well as the state snapshot start to roll out on our website at 1-800-runaway.org/data. And I'm dropping a lot of links, but I'll make sure to add those into the chat as we progress through the presentation today. Here are the top issues that are identified. There's a little bit of shift every year, but there are a few that definitely stay the same. Like family dynamics has always been one of the top reasons for at least as long as I've been with National Runaway Safeline, as well as emotional and verbal abuse. Something that has shifted is like this year, most recently, we've seen a big change in the number of people who are reaching out about the financial situation or economics. So young people are saying that economics is a reason that they're reaching out to us or causing concerns or anxiety or things like that. Since COVID, we've seen a huge increase in the number of young people who are reaching out specifically about their mental health. And talking to our crisis services team, they say that they often get calls for young people that literally just need someone to talk to, just need someone to hear them out and talk to them about the things that they're struggling with, whether it's at home or at school or anywhere else. And that kind of feeds into another big jump that we've seen specifically this most recent year is peer and social issues. So I think as these young people who spend a lot of time not like taking class virtually, going back to school, I think it makes a lot of sense that now some of those have shifted to peer and social issues. So these are again the 2023 data, which will be released very, very soon. If you're signed up for our newsletter, the Digital Frontline, you'll be the first to know when that data is available. Did you want to add anything about these top issues or about the youth status, Sam?
I think I'm next, so I can just roll into it.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Christopher. So yeah, as Christopher shared, I just want to backtrack on a couple of these. So we're here, right, to talk about the Let's Talk Prevention curriculum. And these three data points are really highlighting um, or underscoring, I guess, the need for prevention. So as you mentioned, 36% of young people are at home at the time that they reach out to the Safeline. The status of crisis contact is a little different. It's not quite like an apples to apples comparison, but youth in crisis is essentially a designation for any young person that is reaching out to NRS that is experiencing some sort of crisis unrelated to a housing situation. So it could be I'm being bullied at school. I'm really struggling with conflict in my family unit, but that is not leading them to either want to run away or articulate that in a conversation with us. So it's highlighting that 42% of young people have not transitioned into that kind of contemplating or action phase. 26% are contemplating running, so there's something going on and that is leading them to consider want to leave home. So taking those numbers together, right, what is that? That is 66% of young people that reach out to us. So really important as we start to uplift this curriculum and just highlight the importance of trying to get that into communities, schools, wherever young people are. And with that, the curriculum does go through a whole host of different topics that I'll get to in a minute here. But many of them, if not all, highlight or address the top 5 issues that you see here, among others.
Mhm.
So as I get into the curriculum, kind of quick facts. So the curriculum was originally published around like 2007 with a bunch of research that happened prior to that. It originally came out as a 14 module curriculum with like an intro module that goes over methodology and everything that went into putting the curriculum together. And we're going to be talking about the updates that have happened as of late, taking us to a 16 module curriculum. But through and through, the curriculum has always been designed as a resource for adults or even young people in their community to facilitate this with young people directly. This is a tool for providers or young people for young people. It is not a training for service providers. So really the goals of this curriculum are to build life skills, educate young people about alternatives to leaving home, encourage them to seek help from trusted adults, whether that is regarding a situation of wanting to leave home or just navigating stressors within the home life or within a family. And then to increase knowledge about prevention and resources specifically, if you do make the decision to leave home, what are some options that you have? And really the audience is aimed at young people between the ages of 12 and 20. It's available in English and in Spanish, and you can use it effectively wherever young people are. So schools, very natural setting, after school programs, like community centers. You can use this with a group of, I don't know, 30 young people, or you could use it one-to-one with one young person. It's really up to you. You can make it whatever you'd like because we've designed it really to be able to be malleable or amended depending on what you need. So it's noted up here that's available for download at 1-800-runaway.org. We'll give you more details about how to like specifically walk through the process of accessing that online towards the end here. But some of the benefits and accessibility features that we think are important to highlight. Number 1 is free. It's an evidence-based curriculum. So as it was developed, there are several focus groups with folks in the field that work with young people, and then many with young people themselves, informing the content and flow of the curriculum. Another great benefit of this curriculum is you can just download it and take it, and not a lot of process involved. So you can get it on the fly when needed. You can use it as a full curriculum. So from module 1 to module 16, or you can look through the topics and say module 2, 3, and 7 apply to what I need and use them individually in whatever order that works for you. They're also designed, I'll go through the layout, but to really have activities that build on each other, but can also stand alone. So you can, if one module has 4 activities and you think only 3 are applicable, you can use those 3 and not worry about the 4th. It is very user-friendly and very adaptable, kind of that encapsulates what I've said. And it includes a facilitator guide. This is super, super helpful for all of us as providers. I know we're super busy and it's hard to put in the prep work for some of these things to the extent that you want to or need to. But this guide really gives you not only talking points, but verbatim what you can say to facilitate all of these activities and modules. But with that being said, you can also make it your own, adapt the style, but it does give you the basics of state this, ask this, hand out this. It's very, very explicit. And it includes the worksheets and handouts that you need for all of the activities throughout each module really built in there. And then lastly, it includes pre and post tests. So you can gauge the effectiveness or how much young people are learning throughout or after the exercise. Okay, let me jump to the next one. So I mentioned this started off as a 14 module curriculum. You will see all of the topics listed here. These are in order down the first column, and then starting at the top through the next column. What we have done over the last couple of years is add 2 new modules and adapt the internet safety and fun one. So I'll go into that in a second here. But really, these modules are supposed to flow through kind of like a logical order of what young people might need and be experiencing and build off of each other. But again, you can use them all independently if needed. Some ones that I think are kind of applicable across the board are, and super important, right, are communication and listening. This whole kind of like first chunk from communication and listening down to family roles and responsibilities. Then runaway reality and national safe connections are more so raising awareness of what it's like if you leave home, and then safe connections are ways that you can get help. Same with community response and responsibility. Anger management, stress reduction, and drugs and alcohol are largely things that could apply while you're or after you've left home and are experiencing homelessness, or could be totally isolated and things that you are experiencing either prior or unrelated, right? We all know that those topics can really appear at any point in time, as well as the others here. So these are the first 14. And then, as I mentioned, we've got new ones. So the internet safety and fun module that we originally had produced, we've adapted it to be a little more social media focused. Obviously still incorporating the internet, but it is, we are not where we used to be. So we felt that that needed an upgrade. And then mental health is a new module that we've included. Christopher shared that stat before, that 22% of young people in 2023 highlighted mental health as a reason for why they were reaching out to NRS for support. And then we've also included human trafficking and exploitation, because we do know that exploitation and or human trafficking can be a reason why young people are kind of lured away from home, or they can be experiencing that within their family unit. And then also there's an increased risk of experiencing those things once you have left home or are experiencing homelessness. So very intersectional issue there. Okay, so as for the layout of the modules, one of the really great things about this, in addition to just being able to access it and it's free and you can get it fast, is that it's consistent. So every module that you open is going to follow the same format from start to finish with different activities, right? So first you'll see, and I'm going to show you some pictures too. I'm a visual learner. But the first thing you'll see is the name of the module, the number of the module. Then it will give you the learning goals. So like 3 to 5 bullet points of what we hope to achieve. A definition of the issue. So that is more so for the facilitator, right? You might be facilitating things that you're not 100% familiar with, or it's just a good refresh. So it's kind of like a paragraph to maybe 2 or 3 about what you're talking about. And then that issue, as you start to explain it to the young people, like throughout the curriculum, it will explain it in a different kind of way or introduce it a little differently. But define the issue as like your background content. Then there will be a glossary of icons. So you know that the link means this is an opportunity where you can link another resource available. And there will be like a light bulb or different ones where you know what this icon means when you see it. The activities will be woven in there. And it will, to start, give you a chart of what those activities are. There will be time requirements highlighted for each activity so you can manage your time. All of the materials you need will be listed. And then it will go through more of the robust part of the module will be the content and then the handouts and worksheets that go with it. And then it will include references and resources at the end. And again, the pre and post test that you can elect to use or not. So here are some images of kind of what I just went over. So on the left, you'll see the title, module number, learning goals listed right under there. On the right, you'll see the definition of the issue and the icons that will be listed within the module, that checkbox there. Some others have more. So like you'll see here on this, like the little light bulb is one of the icons we use, and the full glossary is included in the introduction module. Module activities you'll see here is just the chart of what you can expect and how long each activity takes, and then kind of how it's facilitated, whether it's a discussion, an exercise, just a discussion. Then the materials you'll need for the activity. And then on the right, we kind of get into the meat of it. You'll see here, it will again show you how long that activity is supposed to take, and then it will get into the details that I mentioned of explicitly state this, divide the participants into 2 groups, then say this, make sure you have this on hand, allow a minute to complete the activity. So it really gives you like a breakdown step by step of how to facilitate the activity. And then at the end, it will summarize the handouts and worksheets that you used or that are included throughout, any references and resources. And then this icon, the icon glossary from the first introduction module we've just included here. So it gives you a little bit of a better idea what you'll see or could see throughout each module. Okay, so I mentioned there was a lot of, this is an evidence-based program. There was a lot of work that went into getting this established. I think this took about 2 years to develop initially. Everything that we do throughout Let's Talk is trauma informed, and it uses the 6 principles articulated by SAMHSA of trauma informed care. So you'll see them there. Really the aim of this is to, we're talking about serious topics, and, the first tenet of trauma informed care is really assuming or walking into any situation or conversation, knowing that we're all humans. We've all experienced trauma to some extent. And so with that, we're talking about some heavy issues, and we're talking about issues that we can venture to guess young people have experienced. We ourselves might have experienced them. And so the content's written to avoid re-traumatization. So as delicately as possible, and it comes with content caution warnings as well. It also, including those content cautions also will give you some tips or instructions for if someone has this sort of reaction or you see this, here's some things that you can do to help a young person in the moment or to kind of pivot the conversation, invite them to step out of the room, etc. So I think we've got here, yes, an example of a content caution. I'm not going to read it all here, but you can kind of read through some instructions there to assist with being trauma informed. So just providing a listening ear free of judgment, sharing those content cautions, letting the participants, so the young people, know they can leave if they need to. Monitoring participants for sign of reaction is really important. to just see if, they start to respond a little differently. Someone might not articulate that they're feeling any sort of way, but you might know them and might be able to see a difference in their behavior. And just creating a safe and supportive space where, people can feel like they can open up should they choose to do so. Okay, let's get into some of the edits or updates, I should say. So on the left here, you'll see what the curriculum originally looked like in, I want to say, what does that say here? Yeah, 21 to 2022. We went through a series of more so like cosmetic updates and general updates to the curriculum. And we landed on this new layout here. I like it a lot. It feels so much more like clean. It looks more youth friendly, and brought us into the more modern era, right? So this is the new look of Let's Talk. In addition to that modernized look and feel throughout, the organization and that consistent layout that I just went through was really like tightened up. So there's no variation. We went through and did an update on language and terminology. I'm sure we all know that over the last, I would say, decade, right, there's been a lot of very necessary changes to the way that we say certain things or refer to certain groups of people. Really using person first language and updating the modules to reflect just new things, right? Like specifically around like the internet and social media that didn't exist prior. We've also made the icons more clear and easier to follow, and made the fonts a little more user friendly as well as the colors. And then we've updated the worksheets with new, more user friendly graphics. So it was a really solid, we've been calling it the 1.5 updates. From there in 2023, we moved on to the 2.0 updates. As I mentioned, we've got new modules. So, and just to note, they'll be available in Spanish as well, like the whole rest of the curriculum. Those modules, again, are mental health, human trafficking, exploitation, and then like a full revamp of this internet module to be more social media focused. That whole process of developing the new modules really included a lot of youth and community engagement. So there was 3 focus groups that included 17 young people. There was also a focus group in Spanish with, I believe, 4 to 5 young people as well, focused a lot more on does this translate effectively in Spanish, or are there other things that we need to be mindful of from like a not only the language, but like a Latinx culture perspective. So then we also did a bunch of pilot testing. So we pilot tested with 4 youth serving organizations, RHY groups, that had about 30 to 35 young people per module. So the difference here is the focus groups, right, are getting feedback, asking questions to young people directly. The pilot testing is taking the module and delivering it to young people and then getting feedback from them after that, like a full run through, evaluating that and then implementing the feedback that they shared into these modules. So again, this evidence-based format of really trying to ensure that we are incorporating what young people need and want and what will resonate with them throughout the new modules. And as a kind of piggyback to what I mentioned before about making sure that we are using appropriate language, just kind of added a more, what's the word I'm looking for? A very specific eye to make sure that the words that we're using are inclusive, trauma-informed, and flipping some things around to be more strengths-based focus. So an example of that could be instead of saying, ask he or she to do this, or him or her, saying they throughout. Instead of saying at risk, saying young people that may be at risk for, things like that, to just be more in line with how the field is talking to and about the young people that we serve. It also includes revised activities and worksheets and handouts that we mentioned. I'm really excited about this. We reordered the modules a little bit to have a more natural curriculum progression should you want to use it from start to finish. One of the things that I think is, or one of the modules that I should say is most, I think important to highlight here is that sexuality and orientation was towards the end of the curriculum in the first go round, and we moved it up to, I believe, module 3. It's not released yet, but that's critically important. It might be 4, but it is up at the very, very front, right after communication, adolescent development, personal influences, really focusing on what's your identity? How do you navigate that? It's the foundation of the young people that we work with, right? So moving that forward, updating the intro, all of that kind of basic administrative stuff, to include the process that I highlighted, and then the creation of a companion youth workbook. So it will be pulling out the activities so you can just download them in one kind of space instead of just module by module. Okay, I'm gonna pause there. I know that's like a lot of basic overview stuff, and y'all are probably like, okay, let's get into it. So we're gonna pause here for a second. We've got another poll. Christopher, do you wanna, I'll launch it, but you share.
Yeah, so as we mentioned before, and as we saw with the data point earlier, mental health is a rising concern for across the board. I'm sure, well, I'm assuming that a lot of organizations, and this is experiencing the same thing, and this poll will kind of help us suss that out. So the question is asking, is mental health a common reason young people access your services or reach out for support? So we're just wanting to know if young people are mentioning their mental health as a reason for seeking support of any kind when they're reaching out to your organization, or if it's mental health is ingrained into your approach so that every young person has the opportunity to express that. So I believe this is just a simple yes or no question, if you wouldn't mind.
I'll give it a couple more seconds here.
What are we looking like, Sam?
We've got, I'll stop it here and share. So we've got about 72% of folks that said yes and 28 at no. So that's super helpful. As I get into this next section here, thank you all for participating. Okay. So to dovetail off that, and in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, we thought it would be really helpful today if we walked through our new mental health module in a little bit more detail. So I'm going to go through that one. So to start, right, we described that these will all follow a very similar or the same layout. I'm going to go through that, just skipping a few for the sake of time. But our new mental health module, you'll see here that it has the total time required for that whole module. So if you wanted to use this in itself, it would only need an hour to work with young people. So learning goals in this module are to have young people be able to walk away describing the key terms used to discuss mental health and mental illness and be able to distinguish between the two. Recognize the stigma surrounding mental illness and the effects of stigma. Understand ways that mental health and mental illness can impact one's life. And then be able to describe support and treatment that someone might be able to receive to promote positive mental well-being and to recover from mental illness, should that be relevant. Really, the aim here is to just give young people, like, broadly an overall idea of what mental health is and how to promote your mental health and well-being, and to be able to distinguish that mental health and mental illness are not the same thing. And then how we talk about it. So The activities that are listed throughout this module, I'm going to go over one today. That's the highlighted one you see, but there are 4 within there, 2 at 15 minutes, 1 at 20, and 1 at 10. So the intro one is really just what's the importance of mental health. And we say optimal mental health here because we just really like that term of like, how can we be at our best mental health and why is that important? So that's 15. How to start the conversation about mental health, that's 15 minutes. Actually then getting involved, like actually starting it, is 20 minutes. Those are very closely connected. It's like more practice. And then when do I involve an adult or a professional? That's super important. That is 10 minutes. So I will go into, I believe I'm defining it next. So I'm going to read this really quickly, these 2 slides. But again, defining the issue is really meant for the facilitator to have the background information before they start facilitating the module. So, right, this could be something, I mean, if I don't know if we have any teachers on the line, but if you have like an assistant too, right, they might not be as familiar with some of the terms used or broadly how to conduct like a lesson like this. And so it could just be really helpful to get folks up to speed. So mental health and mental illness are 2 terms that are often used interchangeably. By definition, health is a state of physical, mental, and social well-being and not the absence of disease. Mental health is not the same as mental illness. It is determined by a variety of factors, including our genetics and the environment. It also determines how we handle stress, relate to others, and make healthy choices. Mental illness, on the other hand, is a health condition or conditions that involves changes in emotion, thinking, or behavior, or a combination of all 3. Mental illnesses can be linked to distress and/or problems functioning in society. A wide variety of mental illness diagnoses are common among young people, including anxiety disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, schizophrenia, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and depression or other mood disorders. Signs of mental illness in youth can be both physical and mental, such as difficulty sleeping, changes in eating habits, withdrawing from social interactions, persistent sadness, and drastic changes in mood, behavior, or personality. Youth experiencing or at risk for homelessness have higher rates of mental health issues with a lack of access to adequate mental health care. In addition to the day-to-day struggles of not having a place to lay their heads at night, youth experiencing homelessness may face many challenges in their day-to-day lives, including high rates of trauma, abuse, victimization, marginalization, and depression. Thus, it's not surprising that many youth experiencing homelessness struggle with poor mental health and higher rates of mental illness than the general population. They also face limited access to mental health care. In addition, mental health is one of the most common reasons young people reach out to NRS for support, many while they're still at home. That's what we heard Christopher share before. This underscores the need for mental health education and support services as critical tools that can prevent runaway episodes and homelessness. In this module, participants will learn about mental health, self-care strategies to help manage their mental health, how to have conversations with their peers about mental health, and when to involve a trusted adult or professional in a mental health crisis. So that was one of our longer intros, but it's super important, again, because this is something that applies to everybody. Young person, young adult, everybody struggles and could benefit from more tips and strategies to work on their mental health. Okay, so the activity that we want to highlight is how to start the conversation about mental health. So this activity in particular is only 15 minutes long. We're not going to do the activity together just by the nature of kind of this webinar, how it's structured. But I wanted to highlight some of the things that are pulled out within that activity. So there's various opportunities for group discussion in the and some of what those are listed here. So this would be you facilitating and you as the facilitator asking these questions of young people and then getting responses from them and talking through those responses. So first one is what things could potentially motivate someone to seek help or tell someone about a stressful or difficult situation. People respond. you build off that conversation. Two, why is the language we use when talking about mental health so important? Again, pose that question to young people, they respond. Um, and then three, what responses to someone telling you about a stressful or difficult situation could be potentially harmful? So, like, what not to do. I'm going to include some like sample responses here that you might get from young people. So, for that first question, what could motivate someone to seek help? Young people might say they're overwhelmed, they want to change what's going on, they're afraid or concerned about somebody else, say a friend. Those could be example answers or responses that you get. Why is, and in the absence of getting those answers, these are ones that you can add into the mix of the discussion. Why is the language we use when talking about mental health important? Right, depending on the age of the young people you're working with, they may or may not talk about stigma. But to reduce stigma, to make people feel heard, to make people feel safe and supported, to let people know they can talk to you again if they need to. And then three, what are some potentially harmful responses? When someone's telling you about something difficult, saying, that doesn't sound too bad, especially compared to something else. Don't be so dramatic. That can't be true. Things of the like, things that shut down conversation. So those are just some examples. One of the handouts in this activity really builds off of, I'm going to go back, builds off of that conversation, right? So why would people be reaching out? Why is language important and what not to do? This handout is summarizing that essentially. So how to start the conversation, what to do, and then what not to do. I just broke this into 2 slides. So it says to start the conversation, share an expression of care followed by an observation. So that could be, you're my friend. I really care about you. You seem to be stressed lately. That could be an example. But then here are just some general do's and don'ts. So check in with yourself first. So again, this is aimed at the young person. So we want to teach young people to be checking in with their friends, but also they need to be in a place to be supportive if they're doing that, right? So that's the check in with yourself first. Listen, you've got to be in a place where you can listen for somebody if they need help, and really actively listen and paying attention to what people are saying, but also how they're acting when having a conversation with you. Be an advocate. This is pretty simple, right? Especially if it's peer to peer. Let your friend or whomever you're talking to know that you understand and that they're not alone. Keep things confidential. This one's underlined because there are situations that we talk about later in the module of where you break that confidentiality, right? If you're talking to a friend, they might just want to talk about you, and it's really important to honor that unless they say something that makes you think that they're in harm's way. And then pay attention, right? Don't be on your phone. If your friend is talking to you about like going through a really hard time, you want to pay full attention, not be on TikTok, not texting while they're talking. Be present, display that you're there to listen, and that will help people open up more. So just some basic strategies that young people can use. Don't, going back to, I think that last question that is posed in the discussion area, don't minimize, right? Don't say that doesn't sound so bad. It's a big step to confide in someone, and so we should recognize that as wanting to be a supportive friend. So recognizing that confiding in someone's not always easy, and saying that it could be worse is really unhelpful and it could shut down the conversation. Don't argue with anyone. Don't try to change their beliefs or change why they feel a certain way. Just be there to listen and support. Keep an open line of communication. Don't use stigmatizing language. So this can be really nuanced, and young people might not even know that they're doing that. So this highlights using person first language. So an example here, rather saying she's depressed, you could say she's dealing with depression. And then don't force someone to talk to you, right? You can put out like that initial feeler that I said earlier. What did I say? I don't remember what I said. I think I said, I'm your friend. I really care about you. You seem a little different lately. I'm here to talk. Or is there anything you want to talk about? They could say no, right? And that's okay. And you could just say, okay, I hear you, but please know that you can talk to me anytime, if you need to, right? Just let them not talk if they choose if they say they don't want to talk, but keep the door open. So here's this is one of the basic activities in there, and there are others. Okay, how are we doing on time? That's a general overview of one of our activities in the mental health module. I'm going to go over some facilitation tips that you can use in this module or some of the rest, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Christopher here in a minute. So really the whole aim is to make young people feel comfortable in this while facilitating these activities so that they share as much as they feel comfortable with, and also ask the right questions. So really creating that safe space is key. Allow enough time for discussion. So I would say, like, if prioritize the activities you want to do, I think it's better to do that and allow enough time for discussion and not cut people off if you have a really great discussion going, and then you can cut an activity if you need to. Be prepared to give definitions or explain some concepts. We do write this in a way that is supposed to be easy, like, so it's supposed to easily resonate with young people, but there might be words they don't understand or concepts they don't understand. So give it a look through before you facilitate too, to make sure that there's nothing you need to get some background on too. There's plenty of things that are new to us all the time. Be prepared with ways to get the group back on track. Tangents are very common in any discussion, but especially with young people. So be prepared to get back on the rails if you need to. And then be prepared with examples. We do provide a lot in there, but if you, depending on how well you know the group that you're working with, you can also modify the examples to be ones that you know are going to generate more discussion. And just be a good listener, ask follow-up questions, provide supportive statements, especially if young people are sharing personal things. Saying, thank you so much for sharing that. It was really brave. I appreciate you bringing this to the space. Like, let us know if we can support you. Really just validating and providing cushion for serious things that young people are sharing, and encouragement, right, to keep them moving on and participating fully in the discussion. Some things that are super helpful are you might not think about initially are just considering the room layout. If there are any activities that require movement, or if you think movement would be helpful there, be prepared ahead of time. Establish classroom guidelines for behavior in order to create that safe space. So that could be, we are all here to learn today. No questions are dumb questions. No laughing, like, you know what I mean? I'm sure you have a lot of these expectations or guidelines already, but it's helpful to reiterate in this space. Giving students time to process and respond. Silence is okay, especially with some of the heavier topics. It might take a minute for young people to sit there and think and digest, and then be available to respond. And some people just might not feel comfortable responding, and you might have to prompt a little further, or be okay with not getting a response sometimes. The group size you're working with and energy might determine the format of activity. And then some might ask students to read aloud. So be aware of individual skill level to not put anyone on the spot and make them feel like embarrassed, I should say. Here's some others. Kind of covered that. Have a follow-up plan in place. Use those content cautions if someone shares something that might bring up intense emotions or make people feel uncomfortable. Pay attention to the icons. Know when and how much personal info to share. And then I've mentioned this, you can modify any of these modules or activities to meet your needs. And then this is relating to the pre and post test activity forms if you choose to use them. Just maybe introducing it to young people and asking them to take it seriously when they're completing that. So we know that the modules, so we make sure they're getting the most out of the modules that they can. Okay. These are just very generic facilitation questions that you could use, but that by no means exhaustive, and you don't have to use them at all, whatever works for you. But some ways to prompt discussion are, what did you observe or experience? Can you be more specific? Can you say that another way? I don't understand. Did anyone else have the same reaction, or who had a different one? Did you see a pattern, common ground, or connections? What about differences? What was significant about what you did or you heard or that you saw? What does that suggest to you? What can we conclude from whatever we're talking about? Does this remind you of anything? How does this relate to your experiences? Those are just a few, and a couple more others here. So how can you use that info? What are the consequences of doing this or not doing this? What do you think that means? Why is that important? Why do you think that is? So again, super general ones that really can apply anywhere, but by all means, use or don't use, just for the taking. So those are what I wanted to share with you all. Christopher can also share in a little bit here about where to access. He's going to talk about where to access the curriculum, but then he'll also talk about where to access these facilitation tips and questions.
Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and drop some links into the chat here, which will be really helpful. The links are also the shorthand version of the link. So you'll see, for example, on this page, we have a really long URL, which is based on our site mapping, but we have abbreviated URLs like 1-800-runaway.org/let's talk, which are much easier to access and remember in case you forget. The Let's Talk Runaway Prevention page is again 1-800-runaway.org/let's talk. If you're on our website, you'll actually see there's a menu at the very top of the page, and this will be under the prevention and education section. What's great about the curriculum page and the way that everything is set up is that, like Sam mentioned earlier, the modules are not, they don't have to be done consecutively, and you can actually download the modules individually, which is really great. I think of like the situations where you find your organization is at like a conference or presenting something, and like sometimes you may not necessarily have like a full time slot filled with information. This is like great material to share with your community. If you find yourself doing community events and you want to provide information or education about these topics, it's a great idea to download these individual curriculum modules and share them out with your community. The information, like Sam went through, is like really meant to educate young people, but for people who are not familiar with these things, it's a great starting point to learn about things like mental illness. So we present this as being like almost like a classroom setting educational thing, but there are so many different applications. So we highly encourage you to check out the page. Feel free to download the different modules. There's a login option with this so that you can log in and keep up with your progress as you do the different modules. So if you want to pick up and start somewhere or jump around between the modules, and you can always come back and finish at your own pace. Next slide, please. To access it, it's really straightforward. The website right now, the interface is really straightforward. So you really just have to click the download our free curriculum button, which is on the Let's Talk page. That'll take you to the choice to choose between the English and the Spanish version of the curriculum. Both will let you know that they are free because you don't have to pay anything to download these. And then what you're seeing on the furthest right here is kind of like the checklist of the different modules to show you what you've accessed, what you've completed, and what's still available. The modules will also, when you're on the individual pages, have separate links to download tip sheets, fact sheets, and things like that. Any of the any of the worksheets that go along with the modules will also be available to download in their individual course content page. Next slide, please. The facilitator tips are also available to download on that first Let's Talk page. So you can see there's just like a general tip sheet and a virtual tip sheet. One thing that we don't mention in this presentation is that we have a really incredible facilitator video. It does need to be updated because it doesn't match the current design. It was made to go along with the original curriculum, but for the most part, that all of those tips are the same. So we highly encourage you to check out that video if you are like me and can digest things better when it's more visual than just like a worksheet. The facilitator video is on our YouTube page. I'll make sure to drop a link to that. And also to go along with that, I get a few questions every time about when we'll make these available online. So just later today, you should find this video on our YouTube page, as well as the same page that you use to register for this webinar. We'll make sure to send out a follow-up email, of course, thanking you all for joining us today, but also having, it'll also include links to either go directly back to watch those videos on our website or on our YouTube page. Next page, please. Some of the other things that I shared links for and have mentioned throughout are things like our free educational and outreach materials. You can access these at 1-800-runaway.org/outreach. On that page, you'll find different social media graphics that you can use to share information about our services. You can also download things like our general brochure, the street outreach cards, which I mentioned are those really small, like business size cards that are really discreet and easy to share with young people. We offer pull tab flyers, stress bookmarks, which have like a really great list, a list of really great ways to help when you're feeling stressed. We offer like a pull tab flyer, which has the really small tab that you can tear off of a flyer that has our direct contact information on it. And then a home free flyer, which has information on our home free program. We have recently updated all of the materials that you're seeing in the middle. Those are the things that you can download that I just mentioned. But on the right side, you'll see that there's a material orders form. So you can actually go to this page and request that these materials be sent out to you. We have set quantities that you can order them in. I will say right now, we just updated these materials and got new materials in. So because they've changed, we've seen a really dramatic increase in the number of people who are ordering these materials. So we just ask, it usually takes us just a couple of weeks to get these materials out to you. But it is taking closer to like 4 or 5 weeks just because of the volume of people who have reached out. I'll also say that because these are new materials, if you have placed an order like before, let's say like April of this year, and you haven't received those materials yet, feel free to send me an email or just place another order so that I can catch those and make sure that we get the new material sent out to you, especially if you did place an order and for some reason it hasn't come. My contact information will be at the end of the presentation. You can always just send me a direct message. I will make sure that it goes out the next time I'm in the office. Next slide, please. The database. This is a huge one. We want to make sure that we have all of the best information about your organization listed in our database so that if we have a young person who reaches out who's in your area, that we can direct them to you to make sure that they get all of the help and support that you need. Our database is huge. It's over 6,500 different organizations, and we do a really good job of trying to make sure that the organizations give us the most updated information. So as their programs change, I mean, there's so many things that could cause a program to change, whether it's the age of people that they're able to help, the number of beds that they have open, things like that. We want to make sure that those are all updated so that like if things have changed and you're not the best person to help with one thing, or maybe you are the best organization to help with another, that we have that updated information and can share. Ultimately, we just don't want to waste anybody's time, you know? What we don't want to do is refer a young person to you, and then little do we know, like in the past year, your services have changed and you're no longer able to support in that way. Or if we're struggling to find support in your area, but you have become the primary resource for that, we just want to make sure that we have that so we can, again, help people get to the services that they need. So you can go to 1-800-runaway.org/database. You can fill out a memorandum of understanding right there on the page. It'll go directly to our database manager, who is Brad, and he will make sure that everything gets updated for you. Brad is also, like Sam and I, very open to taking direct messages. If you have any questions or concerns, you can email either or any three of us about the database, and we'll make sure that it is all directed to the right place. Next slide, please. And then lastly is our Let's Talk podcast. The Let's Talk podcast is our newest like prevention resource. It was introduced a couple of years ago. It is hosted by me and often features young people that have lived experience. Most recently, I talked to a young person from Louisiana who was kicked out of their home in Illinois. A part of their journey including walking for 14 hours from one part of one part of Louisiana to another. So, we try to talk to young people about the real things that they're experiencing without sugarcoating it, and again, without re-traumatizing them. But I find these conversations to be really helpful. We're always learning new things from these young people about what's going on, what's happened to them, the things that they're seeing, and the things that have and have not worked for them as they've worked with these different organizations. The Let's Talk podcast, we offer transcripts for those. We're in the process of also making these all available on our YouTube page, but for now you can find them on just about any podcasting platform. So that includes like Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Wherever you search for podcasts. If you are not a podcast person and don't have a platform that you use regularly, you can always go to 1-800-runaway.org/podcast and listen to it for free on our website as well. And then I believe that is all for today. We are a little bit early, so of course we want to make sure if there are any questions that anyone had, any thoughts that they wanted to share, then now is a great time to do so. Just feel free to take yourself off of mute. But before that, please take note of our contact information. My name again is Christopher Smith, and that was Sam Gillis who did the presentation earlier. We are both completely open to taking your questions and supporting you in any way we can through email. If you ever need to reach out about anything, don't hesitate. We are super nice. We're like the coolest people ever. Um, um, did you have anything that you wanted to add before we open it up for questions, Sam? I feel like I went through that really fast. You're on mute.
I meant to unmute, but I stopped sharing. No, I think that's great. We can pop our emails into the chat. I thought it just might be easier to talk with people face to face. Hard for me when I can't see everybody. So, yeah, open any questions folks might have.
I'll also add really quickly because I mentioned this last time and it actually helped. We are always looking for different organizations to talk to for our podcast. Every organization has something unique that they can offer, and we should all be learning from each other. So if there are specific things that you know are unique to your community that people outside of your organization or other organizations may not know about, for instance, we're learning a lot about the Two-Spirit community. It's something that is niche, but it is better if that information and education is out there so that everyone understands in the event that they do talk to a young person who identifies as Two-Spirit, they know the difference between what that is and what trans is or what non-binary is. So that's something that we're like super interested in talking to people about. If you find that you are in those unique spaces and working with these very unique people and different people from across the spectrum, then we want to talk to you about those things. We'd also love to talk to you about the unique services and resources that you offer in your community, how they're working, what's not worked for you in the past, and things like that. So my email is I'll drop it in. If you have anything that you'd like to talk to us about on our podcast, then please feel free to email me about that. Any questions?
And if you're more comfortable asking questions one-on-one or over email, feel free to just send us over an email. That's totally okay.
Absolutely. I'll also say that if you register for an account for the Let's Talk Runaway Prevention curriculum, and every now and then, if there's a big period of time between when you log in, sometimes you can get logged out, like your account will freeze. In that event, just send me an email and I can literally unfreeze it in just a few clicks. It's just a security measure that we have in place. But if that happens to you, it doesn't happen very often, but I just like to make sure people know that that's another reason they can reach out to us directly and we can help resolve that really quickly.
Okay. Well, I think if we don't have questions,